Yeah, today we're gonna. So 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, Jacques, you spoke about personal brand
Hmm.
and such a vast topic. And I thought, so tonight I want to talk about a personal leadership brand with the emphasis on leading. Um, and really enjoyed Jacques just quickly to just tease Kedley and Rayan. Did you enjoy last week, Dr. Sean Hussein? They actually both
Oh,
know her. So,
oh no, it was really wonderful. It was definitely a teaser event. I think it did, an appetizer.
mm,
So much there to discuss in more detail. So I would love if Dr. Shanaz can then join us again.
I'm sure she will. She actually runs these talks with leaders and different people, like a keynote speech, and just take
Mm-hmm.
them through exercises.
Mm.
I've been privileged to um, what's the word I want to use? Don't want to say open doors. That's but just create opportunities where she could do that on a nice larger scale. We welcome Carlo. So yeah, so let's talk tonight about a personal leadership brand. Um, and just to, I think I said it the last time, the a leadership brand, even a personal brand, must have two components. Otherwise, it's one-sided. Specifically, if you only emphasize the first part. And the first part is a leadership brand means that you have a value, or you have a skill, or you have a benefit that you bring into the world. And let's use universal language, into the universe. So you start your. What does it mean for me to have a leadership brand? It means I have a value, I have a skill, I have a capability, I have something that I can offer. So that's the first part. The second part must be added. Otherwise, you're sitting with something that is not, is a good feeling. I have this amazing skill, but it's kind of like useless because all you have is you have it. The other part is I have a skill, I have a capability, but that skill or that strength adds value to someone else. So there are two components. I have a skill, I have a strength, and that strength adds value to someone else. So I always use the typical example of you go to the flea markets, um, and then you get different stalls, and some stalls are well populated, like there's a lot of people around that stall, right? What that means is that whoever the seller is has a product that adds value to someone else's space. And the basic thing we say, it is a product that is needed out there in the universe. That's why you've got a lot of people around them. And what they've done is they found the perfect sweet spot between their strength, um, and they found the secret of how that strength adds value to someone else. That's why you get a lot of people around your stall. So think of yourself as a leader, and your stall at the flea market is your team. So you either attract your team to you, or you always find yourself alone. Whether you share a vision, whether you drive an activity, you always find yourself alone. It means you've got something, but it is not of value to someone else. Another illustration is also the flea market stall. Is you get this lady, She's most probably retired, not to stereotype somebody, but just profiling the example. And she's good at knitting. And so she decides she's going to knit knitted dolls, woolen dolls. And she also goes to the store and she sits there. So either she gets nobody to come to her store or only a few people compared to the guy who sells whatever he's selling. So what it is she's got a strength, and that strength is knitting. But what she's knitting doesn't add value to someone else. So it has to have that those two components. So I just wanted to share a few thoughts. And the first one is a question. How do people describe you? Quite honestly, I'd like to believe that I am a likable person. But 2 weeks ago, somebody said to me in not so many words, and I think I repeated that the last time. In not so many words, they said, I know people who know you. He says, but I know you personally. And he says, let's leave it there. What he actually said was, there are people out there who don't think you're such an amazing person, right? So the question is, which leaves me constantly thinking, so how is it that people describe me? And your answer to that question is your personal leadership brand. And I want to emphasize, almost underline the next part, as they see it. So, how do people describe you? Their answer is your personal leadership brand, but emphasizing as they see it, right? So, I want you to picture two extremes. So, use your left hand, and if you have a piece of paper in front of you, a pen, on your left side, you draw a circle. And in that circle, you say, how others perceive me. Or if you a team leader, a business owner, it's how my team perceives me or how my clients perceive me, how my service providers perceive me. That's in the left. On the other side, slightly distant from that circle, on your right hand side, is the sense I have of myself. That's in the other circle. Okay. How others see me, their perception of me. On the right hand side, how I see myself, my own perception of myself. The problem with most of us, and even in leadership, and this is where you get leaders who are not that impactful on people, is that there's a gap between those two circles. And we don't often pause long enough on the gap between the two, how others see you and how you see yourself. And understanding that open space between the two is critical to being effective as a leader, and it will help you guide your personal development. And so when you discover how others see you and how you see yourself, and you find it's not exactly the same picture, it won't be completely off, but it's not exactly the same picture. So the gap between the two circles is where you need to develop yourself. That's where the space of personal development, and often they talk about mind the gap. In other words, take care of the gap between the two. Because if those two gaps, those two circles remain apart, whether it's far, the further it is, the bigger your problem in terms of the impact you have. The nearer the circles is, the smaller your problem. But if those two circles, what's the word they use, are on top of each other, you know you have a sweet spot where you know what you believe about yourself is exactly the same as what others believe about you. So mind that gap, right? And so it's important to understand it is all about how people experience you. I'm going to repeat that. This whole conversation about the leadership brand is all about how people experience you And then I want to put another word and emphasize that word, emotionally. And so the truth is, we think people endorse us mentally, but we are actually approved and endorsed by the experience we give people or how they experience us emotionally. And so the question that goes with that is, first of all, in assisting you in your leadership brand, how is it that I want people to experience me, right? And how is it that what is it that they actually experience emotionally? I must repeat. So, just an example. Most ladies love to shop at Woolies, and there are several reasons. It's because the way they feel when they're in the shop. It's the way they feel when they wear Woolies clothes or they buy Woolies food, right? It, it ends up with a feeling. And then when they shop in Woolies and they're in the mall, they they make sure that they get the Woolies bag, right? They ask at the till, do you want a bag? And the lady insists, yes, I want a bag, right? And the dream behind that is now I can walk through the mall with my bag. Gives me a good feeling because everybody knows I'm shopping at Woolworths, at Woolies. Now, we think that just happens. Jacques, you will know it doesn't just happen. Woolies sits in boardrooms and hours deciding and strategizing and asking, how is it that we want people to feel? What is it that we want people to feel when they experience our brand? And they strategize it. And when you walk in, you buy their stuff, you walk in the store, you take the bag and you go and you come home and you eat that stuff or you wear that clothing. That feeling you have is very is there's a strategic plan and an intent behind it from Woolies, like other brands, right? And it doesn't just come up. You don't just feel that way because they were haphazard about it. It's very strategic. What does that say to us is that when we think of our personal brand, that is the level of intention we need to put behind our personal leadership brand. So, why is this important as I come to a close? The way people experience you every day has a direct connection to how effective you will be with all of the rest. How you communicate, how you influence, how you persuade, how you collaborate, how you teach, how you coach, how you mentor, how you motivate, how you negotiate, how you build trust. All of these are impacted by the way people experience you every day. And that comes from you either being intentional about your leadership brand or how you lead, or you're not, right? So if you're not, chances are that you're not going to have the impact that you wish you have on people, right? So I want to lead you with 4 questions that we're not going to pause long enough for you to think about, but I'd like for you to write down these questions. And these are the questions. Now, remember, this process is what I do with leaders and businesses. Is a very long process. I spend with one person. I must probably spend 3 months on just answering some of these questions or these until we got to a leadership brand statement. So it's not a haphazard thing. So I want to leave you with the questions, and I'd like to say, take yourself out for coffee or tea, go sit somewhere, think of your answers to these questions and write them down. And out of this will be given birth a wonderful possible statement, right? First question. What is it that you value the most? And make the question personal. So let me make it personal for you. What is it that I value the most? In other words, a different way of saying, what is really, really, really important to me? That's the first question. And what I would say is jot down your answers. Could be words, could be sentences, doesn't matter. So list those things. And then the second question is, what is it that I want to be known for? Now, if you take long enough with these questions, they all kind of come to the same answer, but it's important to ask them in different ways. So the second question is, what is it that I want to be known for by others? And then what I say here is you take the two lists, the list of what you value the most and the things that you want to be known for. You take those two lists and you look at what's common to both lists. And if it's common, if there are words or principles or values or activities that's common to both, then those most probably will be the components that is the most outstanding to your leadership brand. So, what is it that I value the most, and what is it that I want to be known for? Second last question coming out of this, but it's also a question on its own. How will I lead others? How will I lead others? Now, this can be some of the components you learn from the first two questions, or it could just be a list on its own. And again, if it's a list on its own, you see what coincides with the other two lists that you've got already. How will I lead others? But now the last question is just as important as every other question, and then I'm going to stop um, and allow for questions. The last question is, what is it that I expect from others? So when I value this and I want to be known as this and I lead this way, what is it that I am expecting from others? Very important question, right? So I'm in a scenario where I've given my best to a certain person, not in my immediate family, but in extended family, even to my neighbors. And I always there when it's an elderly couple, and when they're not well or they have a problem, I either see they've got a problem next door or they call me and I go over and I assist. And 2 weeks, was it 2 weeks ago, I did the same thing. And the lady said to me, this was her statement when I walked into the house. She said to me, "You are very busybody. You always want to know other people's business." And that was very disappointing. And I'm still struggling with it. But it allowed me to ask, if I do what I do, if I help my neighbors, because that's how I grew up, that's my brand, what is it that I expect? So if I didn't expect any favors from them, then that statement would not have been so impactful to me. But if I expect people to be kind and to be appreciative of what I do, not even giving me money or anything, then that statement will hurt because of that. That statement is now very hurtful to me. So I still need to overcome that. Okay. So let me quickly repeat the questions. First is, what is it that I value the most? Make a list. What is it that I want to be known for? Make a list. See what's common in both. And then third question, how is it that I want to lead, or how will I lead others? And then lastly, what is it that I expect from others if I lead that way? So again, if you ask these basic questions, it will, you will come up with a fairly good leadership brand statement. Thank you. Jock, I'm going to hand
Thank you,
over to you.
Alistair. Oh, thank you very much for that, Alistair. I mean, the key takeaway, well, in the process of what Alistair has taken us through, is as actually being intentional
Mm,
about your brand, because whether you believe it or not, you're gonna lead, whether you're gonna lead by choice or whether you're gonna lead by default. Now, default means you're just gonna let it happen, and in your unconscious way interact with people in a certain way, influence them in a certain way, inspire them in a certain way. But this one speaks to really, um, and the process speaks to really being able to be deliberate, decide
yeah.
what you want it to be, And from when we started talking about this, you can see the overlap is it's a good, healthy state of self-awareness is extremely important. If you think about Alistair talking about closing the gap between how you see yourself and how others see you, right? You got to know that I think the strength of all of this is once again being open to receive feedback from others. And even in your example, Alistair, as there are things that we do, how we come across, how we inspire others, and to some extent how we demotivate others around us. Those are all leadership traits. And it builds up in other people's minds in terms of who you are. But you have an opportunity to decide what that needs to be, and becoming aware of how you stack up against that or your own expectation. So, are there any other questions, comments from those of you that have joined us this afternoon? And if you
Yeah.
have, you can kind of sorry, Alistair, you can kind of just raise your hand, and I'll open the platform to you. Sorry, Alistair, I interrupted you there.
No, that's fine. That's exactly what I was going to say. Just there's a hand at the bottom of your cell phone screen. Press it, and one of us will allow. I do have a disclaimer, Jacques. We
Mm-hmm.
have a scheduled load shedding at 6 o'clock. So if I disappear and we're still in process of answering and questioning, then I'm okay with you. But yeah, so I might disappear at 6, not because your leadership brand wasn't good. It's just that ESCOM's leadership brand is a bit questionable at the moment.
I think you're all gonna disappear at once.
No, it's just different areas here.
Oh, okay, I understand.
And
But
by the way,
listen, we.
Jacques, well, so
Mm,
guys, just click on the bottom, the hand, and it will come as you would like to make a statement or ask a question, and we will. But Jacques, it was 30 degrees in Cape Town today.
impossible. Really?
Yep, it was hot. It was like a summer day, but it's that flu summer. If
Mm,
you stay in that sun for a bit, you
mm.
will be groggy at the end of the day. Okay, guys, any questions? I see a comment possibly. Okay, we're inviting Carlo.
Mm.
Um,
Carlos commented there. He's saying he's um, he's had a realization, and it centers on the importance of knowing who you are, your values, your qualities. The first circle, and then the second circle is doing who we are. Hmm.
hmm, thank you. Maybe Jacques, yeah. And guys, in the third circle is how we make them feel about what we do. Very important. And I want to end off, and maybe we can say goodbye with this, Jacques.
Mm-hmm.
So, a leadership brand is when you have a strength, and that strength adds value to someone else. Think about
Mm.
that. And we wish everybody a good evening. If you have load shedding, enjoy it. If you don't, enjoy that
Enjoy
even
it.
better. And so we say goodbye to everybody. Anything you want to say in conclusion, John? And that will
No,
be
just
the
thank
goodbye.
you. Yeah, no, thank you for everybody who's joined us. Look out, please join us next week as Alistair and I have a conversation, and we obviously want to have that conversation with you as we explore different topics. So, a very good evening to all of you.